లాలేష్ వస్తున్నాడు, ఆయనకు ఫోన్ చేస్తున్నా, ఇప్పుడే మాట్లాడినా 10 నిమిషాల ముందు. మేబీ ఈస్ గెటింగ్ 2 minutes లో వచ్చేస్తాడు. నువ్వైతే అన్ని రెడీ చేసుకో, మళ్ళీ అప్పుడు వేస్ట్ చేయొద్దు టైం. ఇంకా నరేష్ ఇంకేముంది లాలేష్, నువ్వు ఏదో ఒకటి సాధించాలి లాలేష్. మనం ఇక పైసలు వచ్చే పద్ధతి దగ్గరకు వచ్చినాయి. మేబీ మంత్ ఎండింగ్ కు రావాలని ఇప్పటికైతే టికెట్ ఉంది, వచ్చిన దగ్గర నమ్మకం లేదు. బట్ వస్తే 30 తారీఖు నుంచి ఒక 2 వారాలు ఉండిపోతుంది. ఆ టైం వరకు నాకు ఏదన్నా సెకండ్ హ్యాండ్ సేల్ ఉన్నవి, తర్వాత మొత్తం ఏమేమి కావాలి అన్నీ నాకు రెడీ చేసి పెట్టాలి. మళ్ళీ నువ్వు ఆ రోజు వచ్చినాక సార్ మీరు ఏం చెప్పలేదు నాకు, వచ్చిందంటే బేసిక్ థింగ్స్ ఏవి పెట్టుకొని చేయొచ్చు, అది నాకు కావాలి. ఎడిటింగ్ అంతా మన ఆఫీస్లోకే వచ్చి ఒక మనిషిని ఎడిటింగ్ చేసుకుంటా, ఆ వెంకట్ గాడే వచ్చి అన్నే ఎడిటింగ్ చేసేటట్టు నాకు కావాలి. దట్స్ ఇట్. నీవు వస్తావా వాడు వస్తావా నాకు తెలియదు, ఆడ వచ్చి కూర్చోవాలి ఇద్దరు. ఓకే, బాయ్. నేను ఇంకా ఏమీ వస్తలేడు, మర్చిపోయిందా లింక్. గుడ్ మార్నింగ్ బాబ్. ఇంకా కొద్దిగా పైకి రావాలా మీరు. ఇంకా కొద్దిగా కిందికి, నాది నీది సేమ్. ఓకే, కొద్దిగా కిందికి. పర్ఫెక్ట్. నైస్ బ్యాక్గ్రౌండ్ యాక్ట్.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Okay, Lalesh, are you ready? We are already late. 2 minutes, 3 minutes ago. We'll finish it. Yeah, Tundarji, already 4 minutes late I know. Okay. Correct ఉందా? బాబు ఓకే.
Praveen, audio బాగుందా?
Yeah, perfect. Audio. Ready, Lalesh? Ready, huh? Okay. Countdown is started. Yeah.
1 second. Hold on. జస్ట్ కౌంట్ చెప్తున్నాను సార్, మీరు తమ్ముడు చూపించాలి.
యా, కొద్దిగా కిందికి రావాలి బాబు.
నేను wearing an A4 tie.
అదే చూసా.
కనిపించిందా మీకు?
కనిపించింది.
ఓకే, సో ఐ థాట్ మేబీ కనిపించట్లేదు నాకు.
ఇంకా కొద్దిగా పైకి అది పోతుంది వస్తుంది పైన టై. దట్స్ ఓకే. యా,
రెడీ సార్?
రెడీ.
తమ్ము చూపించండి సార్, తమ్ము చూపించి ఒక సెకండ్ స్టార్ట్ చేయండి.
యా, welcome to Mana TV TV5. You are watching Insight with Praveen Puram live from Atlanta. Today we have an esteemed guest, Mr. Paramesh Bob Eramali. Hi Bob.
Morning, Puram.
Yeah.
Nice to be with you again.
Thank you. So viewers, today we will have a show with our friend, guest, Mr. Paramesh Bob Eramali, who is the Johns Creek City Council. Like any of us who comes to this wonderful country, they pursue their career, they pursue their employment, they pursue their business. But when it comes to Bob, he has transformed from everything. Now he's serving people, right? So let's get connected with Bob to know more about what is this city council, what is his journey to become a city council, and what his responsibilities. Before we know, let me introduce Mr. Bob. Mr. Bob, he is from Hyderabad, that is from Telangana. He went to the National Defense Academy. He moved to Air Force as a combat pilot, flying combat jets, Jaguars in various squadrons. He also did an employment like all of us. He consulted with many of the great companies like Blue Cross Blue Shield, Bank of America, Experian, Bell South, Lockheed Martin, and almost for 10 years he has continued his job. Then slowly he has transformed from his job into the business. He is a business owner and his wife is a doctor, and he has been into the health industry for almost 17 years. He operated Sai Med clinics in 5 different locations, and as a small business owner for 14 years, he has met and overcome the hurdles of varying severity. During this stint in the military, was actively engaged in defining tactical operations for various operations and support roles. Bob currently works with youth to motivate them and channel them to A-grade schools through his personal efforts. Bob calls Georgia his home from 21 years. He moved to Johns Creek to close his temple, where he is an active member and works extensively with youth. He has been asked to assume the role of directors for many of the HOA board as well. He and his wife Shamala are married 34 years ago, and he has a son, Nick Eramali, who is practicing attorney in Atlanta. Wonderful, Bob. What a journey.
Praveen, I wish my wife was around to hear this glowing introduction.
This really, I think you have covered your journey from a military to business, from employment to business, and now to serving people. Tell us more of your journey. What is this sparkling moments? Why did you come to the public serving a member of Johns Creek? Tell our viewers, what is your inspiration, motivation, and what is your journey?
Thank you. That's barring a nice introduction. You're also a fine friend. And for the viewers, I must tell you, Praveen himself has achieved a lot, especially working with the youth. Before it becomes a mutual admiring society, let me get to your question. So it just happened that growing up in Telangana, I was very close to Begumpet Airport.
Mhm.
And every time I see these planes flying overhead, I said someday maybe when I apply for National Defense Academy, they asked me, what do you want to become? Join the Army, Navy, or the Air Force? I just remembered that the planes which are flying overhead, maybe if I choose Air Force, I'll be staying in Hyderabad, Telangana. That was such a paradox. You do know that our friends are up in the north, Pakistan, China. For next 14, 15 years, I was all the time on the borders. Never did I come to Hyderabad. I came to Hyderabad only to retire.
Wow.
And from there, so that's what, that was my journey into armed forces. Apparently, nobody in my family ever joined military. I don't know. I think I probably didn't want to join the AP Secretariat where my parents were working. So I wanted to do anything but doing that. So that's how I went to join armed forces. Once I finished my tenure in armed forces, I came to this country. As you rightly said, we all have an American struggle, American dream, but struggle comes before the dream. So it does happen that when you come to America, you have no relatives, no other support except yourself. You work, you eat, right? That's when I moved to software. And again, hats off to some of the compatriots from India, my friends, who actually held my hand and taught me that. And for 10 years, I had the privilege of working with Fortune 500 companies, which you outlined. One of the things which you learn when you work for these companies is how to marshal resources and form very effective teams. That is what I saw when I was in the Air Force. In the Air Force, just to let you and your viewers know, we never go alone into enemy territory. We always have 3-4 people because we want to cover each other's back.
Absolutely.
So that's where safety lies. Same way here, what I learned was how to marshal resources, how to make sure everybody is an effective member of this team. And when my wife opened her second clinic, she said, you need to come and work for me. It's getting too big for me. So that's when I shifted from being an employee to being an employee with my wife. And this employment was 24 hours a day, both off work and on work. You continue to work. And as you said, in the Air Force, one of the things which people may or may not know is you got the mission and you got it done. There is no questions asked. Same thing happened in private enterprise. When I joined this thing, you go to the office and one day your wife says, hey, your roof is leaking. One of my patients' room is leaking water. What do? You're not a trained roofer. But that's when, you get into the act and you start marshaling resources and then you address the problems. So this was an ideal kind of situation, which, all the while, even in the Air Force, when you land in a different, what happens is most of the time in peacetime, we stay around 150 kilometers inside the border.
Mm-hmm.
But some alerts do happen on the border, depending on what's happening across the border. So then we move close. When we move close, those airfields got bare minimum resources. And most modern aircraft are extremely sophisticated. They need a lot of infrastructure. So those are the things which we need to get done. Imagine sweeping a runway. Because if you find some stones there, they get sucked into the jet engine and that plane is effectively written off.
Absolutely.
So starting with whether you're working glass cockpits or cleaning the runway, you got to get it done. So this is something which Air Force teaches you. Air Force, Army, Navy. Imagine a ship. On the ship, You don't have something, you live with it.
Absolutely.
You manage without it or overcome it. So that's the thing which very, very clearly comes to fore when you're serving in the services, because you're always operating in an uncertain environment. So all this came to my help when I was running a business. So there's a definite degree of comfort level that you expect things to go wrong, and that's why the business positioned you. Coming to the journey into politics, it so happened after Floyd George incident happened in Minneapolis, there were a fair amount of riots which were taking place. Unfortunately, the cause is, it's a very dastardly act which happened, no doubt about it. People who were militating against it were also well-meaning people.
Mm-hmm.
But you do know there are some criminal elements who look for these kind of opportunities to inflict damage on the weak and vulnerable. One such thing was the community which I live in Johns Creek is a beautiful community where when I joined this community, I lowered the average age to 58.
Wow.
85% of the people were above 80. So when this riots happened, all those people said, no, we'll defend ourselves, we'll get guns, we won't let any rioters come in. That's when you realized you need to have a better control over the city.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be in a position where, should such thing happen, we should be in a position to control it right away before these guys do any damage. Because it's so easy, once you acquire a moniker or a label that this city is not up to snuff, this city is not really guaranteeing security, which is the bedrock of any civil society. Whether it's commerce or day-to-day living, you expect to live in peace and quiet and in happiness. And that can be only, so that was one of the main motivation for me to make sure. You must have heard 2 years back, even today, as late as 2 days ago, Buckhead City,
Mm-hmm.
they've just restarted the program for it to be seceding from Atlanta. The reason being the deteriorating law and order situation there.
Mm-hmm.
And they have no control over it. Excessive scrutiny of the police has caused a lot of police officers to leave the service. And those retiring are not re-signing. So what is happening is we are perpetuating that problem. Meaning you're losing good people, you still need police officers. The only guys left are other people who are not wanted. So you again get police people who have substandard quality. So the idea is to start with, you should not leave good people. Make conditions in such a way that it does not affect your day-to-day operations, especially law and order. So that's what was my prime motivation. And the very first year when I was on the city council, John Street got the distinction of being the safest city to raise a child in the entire United States of America.
Wow, that's a great achievement.
That is, and believe me, it's not my doing. A lot of previous predecessors have ensured security is never compromised here. And if you have viewers in India, I would like to tell them security doesn't mean we militarize this place. What security means is you go about doing what you're supposed to do without anybody hindering or hampering you.
Absolutely.
By virtue of use of force. Illegal, if I may add.
Absolutely.
So this has been my journey to politics. So that's when I realized another thing. I go back to Air Force for a few things which Air Force tells me very, very, they drill it into us is, listen, if not you, who else will defend this country? When you take one step back, somebody is coming one step forward. Number two, they always tell us, you do not belong to Orissa, you do not belong to Chandigarh, you don't belong to Kerala, you belong to the tricolor, you belong to India, you belong to the nation where collectively people's hopes rest. And that's called India. So when I'm firing a weapon, it is not for Manipur or Madhya Pradesh.
For everyone.
It's collectively for India going on offense.
Absolutely.
So that's where I have, that's the reason why I said, if not me, who will take care of Jan Street? This is the city and this is the country where our children's dreams will be realized.
Absolutely.
And what kind of country are we leaving behind for them? So that's where I felt very compelled, motivated, saw the urge to step in.
Absolutely. I think you have rightly said the safety, education, everything. It comes with all of us, right? We have to strive towards that and be part of the system, and definitely do your best to bring the best out of them. So I think when you compare to India, I just wanted to spend 1 minute here. I wanted, because the viewers are mixed from India and us here, NRIs and Indo-Americans, right? So how do you see the difficulty when most of us, when we wanted to be part of the government, they have a mindset only of earning money, if I'm not wrong. Most of them come here to earn money and such. So how important is this to be participate in the government? And do you think it is very difficult? Can you just throw some light of your experiences during your campaign, or while getting selected, or that sort of I want that flavor to be to the people to understand that they can do anything.
I will tell you categorically, you don't join US politics for money. You can Google what my salary is. And it's, let me put it this way. I have few employees. Every single one of them makes more than me. So the point is, not just me, whole lot of people in Georgia Assembly, senators, all these people, they are already wealthy. They are already people of means. So they come primarily to do service to their communities. I have no doubt in my mind whether it's Republican or Democrat, most of them are there to serve their communities. So having said that, with your question, what are the challenges which I faced? Politics, or I would say even day-to-day living and any enterprise, communications is very, very critical. How you message is very critical. That was what I had to work on. I used to go to high school students during my campaign and say, listen, ask me any question about government, ask me anything you want, whether it's a movie, whether it's an event, and I want you to grade me how my English sounds. So the point is, if you sound a little different, people, the mainstream people, are kind of straining to hear, to make out what you're saying. Not many have the patience. So you have just 1 minute or 2 minutes to say your piece, to say why you're running. So that was the thing which I worked on a lot. And I also, this is Praveen, possibly an 11th grade kid told me, uncle, you speak too fast. I said, that is something which afflicts most of my people where I come from. We do also have the habit of saying each word specifically, whereas people here have got a flow of how to say their sentences. But that is it. I had no bones in learning. You have to learn. Every new skill comes with a new set of learning. That was one of my main challenges. I also want to tell you this, while there is a lot of physical effort in running a campaign, it is a highly intense, time-bound set of events which have to happen. You are looking for people who will work with you. You're not looking for people who say nice things. You're looking for people who will run with you. And you become a good judge of characters. You know who the people who will actually say they'll do this and they'll show up and do that.
Absolutely.
Don't we all want that in any endeavor? And
Absolutely.
most importantly, and Praveen, you and all of us are aware, you saying something is different than you leading what you're saying, or you living that what you're saying. So that is what is very critical. People find out very easily or you're just saying it, or you're saying it because you believe in it. So those are the things which, and it always helps. And I think, one of the reasons, maybe this will come in with your question subsequently. One of the main reasons why I got engaged in politics is, America is a superpower, #1 country in the world, bar none, in terms of militarily or economic or innovation. You look at the Tesla, the man came from South Africa, from Canada, came to USA and built one of the largest companies in the world. And he's the #1 richest man. Look, what about Google? Sergey Brin, his parents are from Russia. So this has been a country where it's not innovation. It is also innovation. It also is the ecosystem which the politicians help build. What I meant to say is you have to have the best scientists, the best brains, and also the best kind of politicians.
Absolutely.
Who don't tinker with the system. It's very easy and attractive to tinker with the system so that this innovation is kind of takes a back step. That is what I want our kids, any kid, if to say, hey, this man obviously doesn't look like he's a Native American, native to this country, but he has stepped up and doing our kind of work. I should be doing it. This is what I want my fellow Caucasian people to look at me. People who look like me, the kids who look like me, they should take inspiration that if he can do it, I can do it.
Absolutely. I
And
think
that,
Bob brought up very good points, inspirational, motivational things. As you told one thing about communication, I would definitely see that most of the viewers already understood, right? Coming to this country, being part of the Americans, your communication is always, definitely there is a lag. And I would also want all of us to understand and how to build that in our new generation, right?
yes.
As a part of this NRI ecosystem, I'm also thinking that these youth, through you, how can they have one classes to Indian maybe high school graders to talk to them, right? So that they understand what is their gap, even though they might be a good speaker, but what is missing is very important. Through your program of youth, I rose up, right? So
Yes.
I definitely wanted to take it further. And before we go more deep into your role, I would always, people ask me, youth, right? Hey, do you have any project work for my kid, right? So what can you help to youth in your program as a curriculum for their internships or something? Is there any way that you think there is a biggest opportunities where people do not know?
Here's what, Praveen, one of the advantages, I recently asked one, if there are any doctors in your audience, I won't apologize to them right away.
Mm-hmm.
This is just an example which I quote. I asked one doctor how many people he sees in a year. He says, I see around 2,000 people. I just didn't tell him that, but I wanted him to know, your viewers to know, every time I'm sitting on the bench and legislating, I affect the lives of 85,000 people of Chance Creek. So that is a huge opportunity. It is also comes with fair amount of responsibility. This is what I want the kids to understand. What do I call them kids? The young adults, to understand that everything comes with a price. You are doing very, very well in your academics, because of which you get admission into very good schools. What you're not realizing is this. You just mentioned NRIs, the word NRIs. Every time I do every time I'm mingling, I'm trying to introduce the Indian community to people, local people, I always start to tell them, look, the top 10 CEOs in technology in USA are of Indian origin. They are now melded so well with United States ecosystem that their talents have come to the fore. But the point is, I want our students, our people who look like us, youngsters, to know that they are part of this big tree. They may think of as an isolated leaf at one end of the tree. No, you and my generation, yours and my generation, are the trunk which is supporting these people, which is giving them that terrific values, great culture, from which emanates so much of their success. I am not discounting their hard work, but it also is on a soil, very fertile soil of nice values, which we as parents give them. So my point when I started this I Rose Up is, when they leave your comfortable houses, they're thrust into a place where they're meeting so many peers from so many places. You don't know how all the others are, whether they hold the same values or whether they're, it's not just a question of values, age is also an issue. They'd like to experiment, they suddenly found new freedoms. They like to experiment and start acting grown up and at times act irresponsibly. I understand, I don't want to elaborate anymore. When that temptation comes to exercise this freedom, or say bad choices in freedom, I want them to remember what is ahead of them and is it worth it, doing what they're doing. So that's the reason why, one of the main reasons I want I Rose Up. I rose up. It is a verb. What we meant by that is, I rose up against mediocrity. I rose up to excellence. I rose up to, you define what you want.
Absolutely.
That was the, so therefore, when we have these kids who are coming, we meet once a month. I expose them to some high achievers. Like you also know that the American Association of Physicians of Indian Heritage is a very powerful organization. They're the single largest block in American Medical Association. And it so happened, RP president was from Georgia.
Yeah.
So when Dr. Sudhakar became the president, I got all these students to go talk to him. You mean to say this man didn't have temptation when he had a choice whether to read or to go and play with his friends and do worse. But he chose to read. And today, such a successful gastroenterologist. And he lives the American dream in a very enviable lifestyle. So there's always a price. And I want these people to understand that people like Dr. Sudhakar are there, whom they can tap into. There are people like Praveen Puram, who's doing this messaging to the community. So idea is they should leverage their connections.
Absolutely.
They should understand there are several people who can extend a very, very helpful hand to them. And why do they do that? Because till their last dying day, they will always be known as Indian Americans.
Absolutely.
That label is always going to be there. So never whether they're, so they should accept it and take advantage of it. That's the reason why we started this I Rose Up. So they should be part of this big ecosystem.
Sure, Bob. I think the viewers are watching. Definitely, we need to make them part of the I Rose Up. And moving on to more on your responsibility. So you have been like close to 2 years in the
about
council.
a year, a little more than a year.
Little more than a year. Tell us 5 important achievements you have been watching throughout your campaign and you have did. So just throw to your viewers, what are your achievements you have done, the progress in Johns Creek City Council.
Wonderful. Praveen, can I take 30 seconds to finish my last question?
Sure.
Like what, when growing up, I wanted some great opportunities so that I could, here, ever since I've been in the politics, now I know some judges. Now, when I talk to the judges and I tell them there are a lot of very keen students who'd like to know what is a judge. This judge, she told me, I will get your students, make them sit next to me. I'll explain them the law and consult with them when I'm sentencing. Each of your kid can come with me for a week. Now tell me, growing up, did you have this opportunity?
No, never.
So that is what is iRosa. So
Absolutely.
we want to do that for these people, expose them great this thing. Now let's talk about my role in John Street. Some of the moments which I cherish are our city is now close to getting about 25 years old. This may not be of much relevance to most people, but at about 25 years onwards, slowly this city's infrastructure starts deteriorating. And city's infrastructure was earlier with the district or the county.
Mhm.
County has got a lot more financial resources. Now, when we take over as a city, we as a city has to pay. And if these city services are deteriorating infrastructure, we have to put a lot of cash infusion. We either can tax our citizens or we can invite big businesses who come and thrive in our localities and defray the costs of this infrastructure development. So that is one of the main reasons why we said recently when we had, so as city council, primarily, Praveen, if you allow me, what is the relevance of city council in an American's life? We have come from India to this place. We know distinctly there is a difference in life, quality of lifestyle. I want to assure people, 60% of what you see, what you feel why United States is a great country is because of your local government. The services, the amenities provided by the local government. That is where most of your comfort lies, or most of your irritant points will be. So that's where, when I joined that place, I realized I have this opportunity. So especially as I talked to you about infrastructure. So what happens is, suppose a big company comes here, he wants to locate it here. So they come and apply for their permission. When they apply for the permission, the city engineers go through their plans and then give it to something called a planning commission. The planning commission sees the relevance of this business, how it should well fit into the locality, to the character of this place, and then their recommendation. So once it just happened that on a very flimsy ground, an Indian dentist was denied, very super specialist he was denied permission to establish his business in John Street. When it came to us, then finally the last piece of the puzzle is the city council. We are the people who actually give them the permission. We bless them. That is our responsibility. The planning commission denied it unanimously, saying that this doctor shouldn't establish himself. When it came to city council, now from our perch, we see that these are the kind of people who should come. We should attract businesses like this. We passed it unanimously 7-0. So what did this say? They said to the business community, Johns Creek is open for business. Johns Creek is looking to bringing quality businesses to this place. You won't believe, 2 months later, Boston Scientific came to Johns Creek. Just last month, almost a year after that, you are familiar with this very, very upscale mall in Alpharetta called Avalon. The same developer who has put up this best-in-class mall in the entire United States is now putting a mall with mixed development in Johns Creek. I think we'll talk more about the subsequent.
Absolutely.
Occasions.
I wanted to do an exclusive program on that, Bob. As we discussed, we will definitely do.
So this is what I meant.
Pardon.
This is what I meant to say. This is where we have a role in defining the character. So this has been some of the things which the change of character or prolonging of that reputation matters. And
Absolutely.
I'm happy that we are part of it.
So one thing I wanted to ask from the perspective of an ordinary person to a business person, where are the opportunities where they can reach you if they are stuck? That is very important for everyone to understand your role and how they can reach you.
Okay. Praveen, wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity. My business, I know, earlier on, I told what the doctor does good for his entire lifetime. I have a limited shelf life. For me, another 3 years, maybe another 4. But during these 3 plus 4, that is the only window I have to help. Not just people who look like me, but everybody. Most of the time, I'm helping people from Cobb County and Henry County and somewhere in South Georgia, because they just heard, hey, one Indian has got elected to position in the government. And it helps that people know that I'm little helpful. I would like, through your medium, if you can tell them how to contact me, they can always call me. And here is what I also want to tell you. There are certain misconceptions because of which their ventures, their how do I say, their interactions with cities and government gets delayed. That can be removed by a word to the right people. And to the right people, I explain, hey, this is the reason why this man is, or this person is applying in your city. So it does help. And if I can always tell you this, if it's legal and honorable, every other politician will listen to us.
Absolutely.
Because they understand. We are, at the end of the day, we are all Georgians, we are all Americans. If he knows why, the reason why I'm intervening is, I'm just removing certain misunderstanding or miscomprehension. So definitely we do have a role. Just the other day, one of the topics very dear to me is these parents and kids who are differently abled, special needs kids. I just spoke to the education department in your county, and I'm just part of one city in your county. And I was so happy when that lady called me up and said, Mr. Bob, thank you. My kid was in the right class, placed in the right class. These are small things, but for them, that changed their life.
Absolutely, Bob. Those are the touching points. People do not know whom to contact. I've been in a number of situations like that, people reaching out to me for help, and I ensure that I write an email to the right people. And if it is right thing, definitely I have helped him. So I will continue to do. This is the medium for all my viewers as well. They can reach out. That is the reason I'm bringing people like you onto the show to explain that we are all there to help them in any aspects, which is very legal and good to do. So in the similar thing, I wanted to also understand, recently, Johns Creek has celebrated Diwali, which is a very good milestone after you and Dilip coming on board. So tell us more about how people can join in any aspect. It might be a voluntary, it might be a committee, it might be anything. So tell us more, any avenues, what is your plan to pull more people into the voluntary or into the committees to make more effective among the Indo-American community, especially?
Excellent idea. Excellent idea. And before people forget, Mr. Praveen himself is part of a citizen advisory board in Forsyth County under the Sheriff Department. This is what is, I mean, not just saying, not just talking the talk, but also walking the walk. Praveen, thank you for your service. When we met at the Sheriff's office, I was so happy that somebody has stepped up to this extent. And the way you're saying, you write emails to others, terrific. More power to you. And if I can be any help to you, if you want to leverage my connections, feel free at any time. And talking about opportunities for Indian, not just Indian, any kid. Let's put it this way: any kid, anybody. Point is, just the other day, one legislator came to me and said, "Hey, we have something called paging in the capital, Gold Dome, or where the government is." So before he finished it, I already sent it to about 25 kids and said, "Hey, you need to be part of this. You need to understand how the levers of government work. You need to rub shoulders." My point is this: I don't mean to knock on McDonald's or Burger King. If you are exposed to Burger King, you'll know how to make great fries or burgers. But if you get exposed to some of these high quality individuals, you learn to know how they think. And believe me, they're the people who create opportunities, and you need those opportunities. So you should been knowing them. So these are kind of things which I open up to people. So moment I get to know anything, and talking about the Diwali and Lunar New Year. Lunar New Year we celebrate as the Chinese New Year. Chinese, Far Eastern country people believe in the lunar calendar. That's why they celebrate the New Year. You know, you'll be surprised. 1 year before we came on the city council, there were some Tamilians who wanted our grounds for Jagannath Rath Yatra. For some reason, they were denied because they didn't know what happens in this Rath Yatra. So it is, when you don't know something, you think you don't definitely think something good about it. You think there is a chance that they'll wreck the ground, they'll disturb things, whatever be the reason, it was denied. Thereafter, me and Dilip got on the city council. Now imagine Georgia was the first city to celebrate Diwali. So that's a tremendous sea change about attitudes, because me and my esteemed colleague were able to convey that these people are extremely conscientious, very integral to a model society. We need to invite them to be part of the mainstream. And I'm glad to say the mayor, who's a good friend of mine, said, Bob, since you guys came on the city council, I had never seen so many Indians stepping up to volunteer in many communities. And sure enough, we already recommended a number of them. But here is what I want to tell you, Praveen. We can't just recommend only Indians or Pakistanis or Chinese. We should recommend the best person, whoever it is. And I believe when people come here, they are some of the brightest minds which have come from our previous country. So therefore, they should get a chance. And I always believe, all people who look like me are ambassadors of India or whichever country they are. So they always have to put their best foot forward, whether they're going to Costco or they're coming to Johns Creek City Council. And I believe that they should come to go both places. They should get involved. Praveen, whenever I see you in some of these civic occasions, it really warms my heart, because not only you go there, but you also come on this medium, and through you, so many other people are coming on board with us. And nothing can be better than that for the community. It's not that just because more people who look like me are part of this ground. I want to invite the best.
Absolutely.
Coming from Indian community, more power to it. Because this country was built by meritocracy, not just by, friends and family.
Absolutely. You brought up a right point that everyone should put in our best effort, to make that things happen. And more people I want to encourage. And people are encouraging me to bringing people like you and, sharing your knowledge and helping the NRIs or Indo-Americans or maybe Americans as well. Because, more and more we do, more and more people start watching and then they get inspired. That's the main motive of this show. And coming to the Johns Creek City Council, help us understand, under mayor, how many councils would be there, what are the opportunities, and how many different councils will be there, and what is their area limit, just to throw light, and how many people are there totally?
Okay, I'll just be very brief in this. See, most people, this for the benefit of not NRIs, but people back home. We have the US government. Below it is the state government. Below it is what you are knowing as district. We call counties. We have county government. In counties, we have cities. So we have city governments. Normally, a city is run by its charter. In Johns Creek, our charter says there is a mayor who's the face of the city.
Okay.
There are 6 city council members. We, along with the mayor, are like board of directors of a company. We set the policy. We are the overseers of the execution of our policies. That means if we were to build a park or a bridge, and we find that bridge is collapsed in 5 years, we question the people who run the execution part. So we are helped by a permanent staff of city manager and rest of the folks. They run our directions. They're the ones who build the parks. We're the ones who go and check it out, whether it's up to our city's character and liking. And that's where we put our, most importantly, we send the dollars that way. If we find something very important, that which needs funding, public funding, that's where we come in. I hope I've answered the question. I think you need to remind me the last clause of your question. So this is where essentially we are in the policy making business, giving, if you take a movie, we are the directors of the movie. Most people don't understand. Most people understand that the heroes are somebody else, but we are the directors of the movie. And we are also the people's representatives. So
Absolutely.
we are quasi-heroes and quasi-directors in the sense. We are the face of this.
You're right.
People elect.
You have explained very well, Bob, on that. And now the viewers understand what's the government and who is the face of the city and how they are really manipulating things and help people in that. So during the campaign of this particular show, I had a couple of questions from the citizens, from the Johns Creek citizens, right? One is on the gun violence in this country. I know that it is a big topic, but what is your view in the gun violence and how it is in your city? Is it under control, or it is, you see any anomalies between? And what is your opinion?
Thank you. That's a very sensitive question. I also want to tell you, didn't I brag about Johns Creek being the safest city to raise a child?
Yes.
So obviously, we are a very, very secure city. Just to give you an idea, our police department has got about 92 officers. There are surrounding cities who want to hire police people. We have a waiting list of 6 people wanting to get into ours. So that's our bragging point. Can you please repeat the question, the last part?
The gun violence. How do you see the gun violence and what is the solution?
Okay, here is what I'm saying. Gun violence, especially when it happens in schools, is really an abhorrent thing. It jars people to the nerves, and we always want to see an end to this. Here is what our question is. One of the observations which rarely gets thrown up is, all this violence happens in gun-free zones. 93%, it's been registered. 93% of gun violence happens in gun-free zones. Have you ever heard of every time you go to an Atlanta airport, don't you think there are at least about 2,000 to 3,000 people who are there waiting there? Are they not a great target for any terrorist?
Absolutely.
Why doesn't it ever happen there? Because there are people in civilian clothes who are heavily armed. Should any guy pull a gun there, he will be immediately neutralized. But unfortunately, in a school, we are not allowed to implement certain security measures. Because children are children. We don't want them to be militarized. We don't want them to grow up in a society. But there are several ideas. But if you keep focusing only on that, let's put it this way. Look, the car deaths in the United States, about 40, 45,000. Nobody calls a ban for them. They are dying. People are dying every day on that. If you divide 45,000 by 365 days, so that's everyday news all across the United States, right? Compared to that, this kind of violence is much less. And again, 90% of this violence is with handguns, and most of the violence is also partly suicide is a major factor of that. There are several studies which are never highlighted. The last one in 2021 was done by in a university from Washington, or George Howard University or something. I'll send that link to you subsequently. There is a concept called civilian defensive use of guns. That is when a civilian draws a weapon to protect himself. This is done in the school business by economists and business folks. They found out there are about 3 million instances where the gun was drawn. And you will be startled that 80% of the time it was not fire. So that means 80% of the time crime was prevented. Look, now this is, Stalin said statistics are just numbers. They don't have feelings.
I know.
Correct? But look at 80% of the crime. That means how many rapes were averted? How many murders were averted? How many children didn't become orphans? If you look at just the weight of numbers, these sporadic school violence which happens, as bad as they are very, very tiny, minuscule. Now you tell me, just like as I asked you, can you ban cars which are causing these accidents? Can you ban that? Yes, legislators are working on keeping these guns out of the hands of mentally unstable people. Legislations will come, and I hope that it will be a lot safer environment. But this is the essential part which I want to check. Look at World War II. How many Jews were killed? 6 million Jews were killed. Why were they just led to these slaughterhouses? Do you think they would have willingly gone to these slaughterhouses if they had a weapon in their hand?
No.
So it's just something to think of. Would you like to ban something just automatically, or would you like to give it a consideration? That's my interest is, I want people to think in those lines. I do agree. I will never condone violence in schools. Oh, did I say that? I will always condone violence in schools. What am I saying? I will always condemn. I use the wrong word. Sorry. Some of them. I will always condemn the violence in schools. I cannot, in good conscience, ever justify that.
Absolutely. I think you explained it very well. Hopefully, more and more solutions around gun violence happens, and we have a peaceful life altogether. That's what we all have to expect. And what is our part? We have to be thorough on that. That's in our control, right? So I think let's hope for the best. And the other one, I know the topic was a mother of 5-year-old was sued by Rhode Island teachers union and billed for asking the class curriculum. So that's one of the viewers' question. Don't we have a right to know what our children's been taught in the school?
I hats off to this person, whoever has sent this question to you. It is a topic which is very, very dear. You know, when I came new to this country, when I was new in this country, you come with certain ideas back from India. I asked a professor who teaches law, and I asked him, so he said, I don't want my children to learn sex education. That was in 9th grade. His daughter was in 9th grade. He said, why do I want, they got enough time to learn about themselves, then why do I push them to think about this? One of the things which is very, very clear in my mind is, when certain line of thinking happens between man and women, you can't unlearn that. You can't unsee that. You can't unthink that.
Absolutely.
So therefore, when that is the premise, why do you want children as young as 8 years, 9 years to learn about this? That is a time when they should play games, build great friendships, great memories, black, blue, everybody. They should get together and be as children, do things which are children, learn math, learn how to do spelling. Those are the things which they need to be taught. And the parents have got every right. I repeat, parents have got every right to understand what their children are. This is something very, very alien to us who come from India. We never question what they're being taught there. Or at least when I was growing up, my parents had never had an opportunity what I was being taught. But fortunately, they were teaching the right things, not this kind of stuff, which is coming to the fore. I can understand people learning diverse viewpoints, but I can never understand why a child under 14 should learn about this.
You're right.
Here is what, there are several books in Texas schools, libraries, school libraries, where shockingly revealing And to an extent, unusual experiences of this behavior are cataloged graphically in books in school libraries and are available in school libraries. What does that mean? It means, Praveen, you and me have been parents, our parents. When we make that kind of resource available, essentially we are telling our children, I'm blessing you, go ahead and read all this stuff.
Absolutely.
This garbage is suitable for you. So your government is sanctioning, by putting those books there, government is sanctioning, or rather blessing that, or sanitizing that trash which is being displayed there in the libraries. That is my opinion. And if parents object to it, more power to them. I will always be in their corner.
I think you have brought up a good point, Bob. I think we all need to understand what is required, what is not required. The availability of digital content is too much now. We couldn't control them. I think probably this calls for me, how we can interact with the officials in a monthly fashion. So next I will plan with you how to engage people with their problems, not to sulk about it, but what is the solution? How can we solve them together? So let's plan out something, because I see that a lot of questions coming in. I know that 30 minutes is already done. So we will definitely have a follow-up call in future, or we will have a monthly session where you can reveal some happenings in the city, and people, as a parent, citizens, as a business owner, as a responsible citizen, they can be part of these discussions and ask their questions. So if you are open, we can plan for something. At
Sure,
least I know most people will not show up, but we will try with a limited people. We will see how this will go.
Sure. In closing, I just like to add, since for you and me, youth are very, very critical components of our life and our future. I always want to tell them, especially our younger audience, please choose your friends carefully.
Yes.
Friends are like buttons on an elevator. Some take you up, some take you down.
Wow.
So
Nice.
please choose your friends carefully.
Right, Bob. I think finally a great message from you and a great learning from you. And finally, before we close, what is the message to the community?
My message to the community is very clear. Stay engaged. You are one of the finest components of United States of America. If you are a melting pot, you are very much part of that melting pot. Do not think of it as being disloyal to some country of your origin. Your kid's life and future is being made here. So stay active, stay engaged in the process. That would be my message. And especially engage in the process means process of education and process of government. These are two things. I'm not competent to say what the economic and all that you are capable, your skill set will take you where you are. But as a community member, stay engaged in the education process as well as government process. This is my two main takeaways.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you so much for your valuable comments and the knowledge what you have shared. Viewers, I think it's time. Again, thanks to Bob for spending his valuable time with all of us to educate us, to give some solutions as well. And all the viewers, I would say that please encourage to see these videos and also bring up what you need in your day-to-day life. I'm more than happy to bring them onto the show, explain, share the knowledge to you, and facilitate you to smooth your lives. With that said, have a wonderful weekend. Thank you, Bob. Thanks, everyone.